Welcome into the CBS Sports College Football Picks Show. I'm your host, Richard Johnson, joined by my guys, Brad Crawford and Emory Hunt. We are locked and loaded for another week of college football betting action. Let's get into it with our headlines to monitor of the weekend. Let's start with Arizona State. Guys, their best player, flat out, ain't going to play this weekend. Jordyn Tyson has been ruled out versus Houston. The Sun Devils are still a 7-point favorite, total 46.5 in that game. He's nursing a hamstring injury. But guys, Tyson is the sun, moon, and stars for this Arizona State offense. There's absolutely no other way to put it. He's got 93 targets in that for that Arizona State passing game. The next most targets is running back Raleek Brown. I know Emory likes to hear the running back getting fed with some catches out of the backfield, but nobody around this Arizona State program likes to hear that Jordyn Tyson cannot go. Brad, how do you think this affects their chances to frankly win the game? Besides, before we even get to talking about cover.
This is alarming news for their offense, Richard. I mean, like you said, Tyson has nearly 3 times the amount of targets. 59 catches on the year is 3 times the next closest wideout the Sun Devils have. So this is a major problem offensively. You look at what he did last week against Texas Tech in that upset win. 10 catches in that game, couple big receptions late. Who's going to step up as Sam Levitt's go-to target on third down? That's my primary question. Arizona State, by the way, already struggles on third down, 34% conversion rate. That's like 14th in the Big 12 this season, and Tyson is the number one target for Levitt. So I'm a little bit worried for ASU's offense in this one.
I feel like we should
Emory.
break this. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Richard.
No, go ahead, Emory. Go ahead.
I was going to say we break this down like there's a couple ways to look at it. When you think about, Sam Levitt and now the second game back healthy-ish in this ball game, how can he rise above not having Tyson? Can it be similar to what we saw from him last year in the playoffs in the game versus Texas? Although there's no Cam Scatterable this year, but there's Raleek Brown. And on defense, can they get stops? And that's going to be the biggest key in this game to me, more so than Tyson being out, is how can they slow down what they're going to see on the other side from Houston. If they can get good stops, and maybe if Sam Levitt can, rise above and play like he did last year without Jordyn Tyson in the postseason and just finding other targets to keep the sticks moving, then they got a shot. Because, man, defensively, I have not been impressed so far this year with Arizona State.
I'll tell you, one team I have been impressed with defensively is Houston. Houston's been pretty good on defense, especially up front. Emory, how about Willie Fritz and the boys getting it going down there in Houston?
They throw a lot at you, and they throw a lot at you with speed and tempo and pace. And it's always about playing with your eyes at the second level. And it's usually the linebackers that are a half step late or a half step out of place. And that's where big plays happen in the passing game. That's where those chunk plays happen in the run game. And if they're able to continue to play with the eyes of aggressiveness of these second level defenders, I think they have another great opportunity to pull off a win. And this is a huge game in the Big 12. When you think about both of these teams and how they're still within striking distance at the top, it's still a wide open Big 12 conference, in my opinion. This is one of the spotlight games of the weekend.
Brad, yeah, I was going to bring that up about the Big 12 race and the measure of it right now after Arizona State gets that win over Texas Tech, surprising win to me, over Texas Tech last weekend. I mean, I don't personally think BYU is going to finish this season undefeated, so you're going to have an absolute logjam of 1-loss and 2-loss teams in the Big 12. How are you kind of looking at the Big 12 race right now?
Yeah, Texas Tech is still my front runner, but I'm like you. I was surprised at that loss last week to Arizona State. Not a great Arizona State team has already lost to a bottom dweller in the SEC, Mississippi State, in September. But we look at this Big 12 conference as a whole. This, to me, shows with Texas Tech losing and BYU being the only remaining unbeaten right now, it shows me that the Big 12 is likely only a one big league in this 12-team playoff. That's what I'm kind of looking forward to 5 or 6 weeks from now. Can the Big 12 get a second team in? Obviously, if BYU runs the table, plays Texas Tech, then maybe we have a scenario in which a 1-loss BYU and the Texas Tech conference champion gets in. But right now, I only see it as a one big league, and it's between the Cougars and the Red Raiders.
Fellas, let's go to the Plains, where Auburn center Connor Lew is out against Arkansas. Arkansas, 2.5-point favorite, 55.5 is the total in that game. Look, it matters here because Auburn is last in the country in sacks allowed this season with 27. Some of those sacks have most certainly been on Jackson Arnold. You saw that, for instance, in the Oklahoma game where the Sooners were able to get Arnold on the ground 9 times in the game. Thought it was 10. They changed it after the game to 9. Defenses have been all over this Auburn offense, and that's disappointing because coming into the season, Hugh Freeze said they had 6 offensive linemen that were NFL ready or NFL or that were NFL style talents up front for the Tigers, but we just haven't seen it this year. Before we get to the off-field stuff around this game, and there are multiple storylines off the field, let's talk about on the field with Auburn. Brad, how do you think Connor Lew being out affects Auburn?
I think it probably fatal to this game for the Tigers, to be honest with you, because we're talking about a quarterback situation where Hugh Freeze admitted this week that the leash could be short on Jackson Arnold. That means Deuce Knight, who's only played against Ball State this season, might be taking reps from a second-team center. You really worry about that. Look, the Tigers have lost, 4 consecutive, essentially one-possession games in SEC play. I know it was a 2010 game against Georgia, but Auburn led throughout that game. So we're talking about a game Saturday where if Auburn loses, Hugh Freeze's 0-5 start, then his scorching seat goes to just, extremely red hot and probably it for Hugh Freeze. So this is a must-win opportunity for Hugh Freeze, but losing his starting center, quarterback situation iffy right now, I'm worried if I'm a Tigers fan.
Emory, do you think Auburn's offense is going to be able to do enough in this game against an Arkansas team that, yes, on defense, not really what you want, but Arkansas has been scoring points under Bobby Petrino?
Therein lies the lead that you guys have buried. Like, I wouldn't be as worried if I'm Auburn because they're facing Arkansas's defense. And we've seen what that looked like all throughout the season under multiple coaches, right? So until their defense shows up to the 2025 season, I have no confidence in believing that this center that's going to be out for Auburn is going to make that big of a difference. Now, they could show up this weekend. We'll see. But to your point about Arkansas's offense, that's where the problem will lie for Auburn. Arkansas will want to make it look like Nolan Richardson's Arkansas's basketball team, where they're just going to go up and down 94 feet of hell, right? Going back and forth, up and down the field. And that's what you're going to get with Taylor Green in this offense. So it'll put the pressure on Auburn's offense, which struggled to score despite Missouri trying to give them the game last weekend. Like, here's 7 chances for you to win this ball game. Take it from us. And their offense couldn't do anything. So therein lies the problem, because if they get into a track meet with this Arkansas Razorbacks team, it's all she wrote. And I can understand why Arkansas is favored here.
What cannot be understated is the off-field storylines that surround this game. All right, let's start with Auburn. Hugh Freeze, last week, athletic director John Cohen gave a odd vote of confidence, if you can even call it a vote of confidence, where he made an analogy to maybe his car will start about whether or not he's going to get rid of Hugh Freeze at some point during the season or at the end of the season. That was after Freeze bungled a situation where Damari Alston will be not with the team for the rest of the season. And because of an injury situation, he bungled kind of the communication about what was going to happen with Alston. This week, on Monday, when asked if Hugh Freeze wanted a vote of confidence, a full vote of confidence, a la Mike Norvell or Luke Fickell, Hugh Freeze said, and I quote, "Yes, it would be huge." So he's kind of sending a shot across the bow. Look, it's Auburn. There's always something going on at Auburn. Brad, how do you think this off-field stuff affects Auburn's preparedness and how ready they are for this game?
I don't know if it's going to affect Saturday's game, but I do know it affects Hugh Freeze, the rest of his coaching staff, just sort of the what-if factor. What if I'm looking for a job 3 or 4 weeks from now if Saturday and the remaining games after that go awry? If I'm Hugh Freeze, I'm just throwing caution to the wind. Look, this is a bad Arkansas team. Bobby Petrino is coaching for his job as well, trying to remove the interim tag there in Fayetteville. And this comes at a good time for Auburn. Like I said, 4 consecutive competitive games against better teams than you in the SEC. Finally, you're playing a team in Arkansas that is comparative talent-wise. And Jackson Arnold, we still haven't seen the guy that looked really good the second half of his freshman year at Oklahoma, which feels like 2 or 3 years ago. So if I'm Hugh Freeze, this is Jackson Arnold's game. At some point, he put all his eggs in Jackson Arnold's basket, and Jackson has to play well. Maybe it happens Saturday, maybe it doesn't. But to Emory's point, this is a matchup you like because Arkansas's defense gave up a 50-burger to Notre Dame a little bit ago and then 45 points last week to A&M.
Brad, I'm glad you brought up Bobby Petrino and Bobby Petrino trying to secure that Arkansas job. He's the interim head coach right now. Bobby Petrino, because of his own history with Auburn, where he was almost the head coach of Auburn back in the early 2000s, would love nothing more than to put the stake in the heart of the Hugh Freeze era at Auburn. Emory, do you think Arkansas's offense can bring it enough in this game to outscore Auburn if that's what it comes down to?
Absolutely, man. And it's because they have, I think, the best quarterback prospect in the SEC in Taylor Green at QB. This is someone that could potentially have a 4,000, 1,000 season, and no one's talking enough about him, but we bring him up every week on the show because we understand that the talent that he has, he's a clone between Randall Cunningham and Vince Young. And they have that right now, and that's going to win them a lot of ball games or keep them in a lot of ball games because their defense is going to lose them a lot of ball games. So yes, they have the offense to score. And I always laugh at the vote of confidence thing because what that sounded like to me was how Aaron Glenn answered the question about who his starting quarterback is going to be. Oh, we'll have a quarterback out there. Like, dang, bro, you can't even say my name or which one. That's what that sounds like for Auburn. And it's just shocking to me that Cam Newton held this program up. Make him the head coach because it seems like since he left, everything for Auburn has just gone completely downhill and has been chaos since.
Elsewhere in the SEC, third storyline, we're going to do this one quickly. LSU linebacker Whit's doubtful against Texas A&M second week in a row. He will not go if he does not end up suiting up. LSU's 0-4 against the spread in the last 4 conference games versus ranked teams. The matchup here may very well be A&M's wide receivers against LSU's defensive backs. But it does need to be said, Brad, that Whit's not going in the middle for this LSU defense. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal, and it's also a big deal that LSU can't score on the other side of the football. I'm a little more worried going into this game if I'm an LSU fan for the offense. You know, when is this going to work under Joe Sloan this season? Here we are, Brian Kelly said in the offseason this was a team capable of getting to the playoff. Well, if you don't win Saturday, you're not getting to the playoff. And right now, they can't block for Garrett Nussmeier. They're still struggling in the run game, and the explosive plays that we expected to see out of this LSU passing game just have not been there this season. And A&M, unlike South Carolina, unlike some of these SEC teams that LSU has beaten up on this season, they can beat you deep. They can beat you on slot crosses. They're with Whit Weeks, unable to cover that over the middle slot guy. So I'm a little bit worried right now. LSU playing at home. I know it's a tight game, 2.5-point spread, but I see why A&M's favored in this one.
Emory, freshman Carius Kern, goes at left tackle for LSU against, among other people, Cassius Howell for Texas A&M. Not a great matchup for the Tigers.
There's not a great matchup for the Tigers across the board this ball game, guys. When you think about how well Marcel Reed is playing, how well the point of attack is playing, 9 backs in the backfield for A&M are playing better than LSU's running back. So everything keeps coming up Aggies in this ball game. I think it's going to be tough for LSU to get a win at home despite all of the atmosphere that surrounds them. And I feel bad for Whit Weeks. He got bit by the love bug. We've seen it with Cleopatra, Yoko Ono, even Lucy from Charlie Brown. Like, stay focused, young man.
When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to focus in on the Blitz. We're going to hit you with picks from around the country for Saturday's game and the game of the week next. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Y'all, Brad Crawford don't need to be here to still clean up. Brad Crawford sent in his picks digitally to the show last week. And despite the fact that I was live and in living color in studio, Brad still lapped me, still swamped me, and he still is ahead in our pick standings. Emory, my brother, come on now. I'm bringing up the rear here, man. But we do have game of the week right now, Oklahoma and Ole Miss. Ole Miss heads to Norman, and Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite in this game. Guys, Lane Kiffin, a little bit of the war of the words this week, made some allusions to some sign stealing legally, obviously, sign stealing that Brent Venables and that Oklahoma defensive staff may or may not be doing some prowess. It's almost like they know the plays, Brad. Do you think that's going to be a factor, the little war of words Brent Venables maybe trying to get back at Lane Kiffin on the field on Saturday?
Perhaps it's a built-in excuse for the Ole Miss coach if Oklahoma dominates this game defensively. I think the line's a little weird here. You would, outside looking in, think Ole Miss is the better team, a little bit better offensively than OU has shown this season. But Oklahoma's a home favorite, -5.5 for a reason. I think Lane Kiffin sort of alluded to that pregame, talking about Brent Venables and how well his team is able to diagnose plays before they happen. But look, we know Ole Miss quarterback Trinidad Chambliss is going to go to the line of scrimmage. He's going to look over to his left at Lane Kiffin and see what his head coach is calling based on OU's defensive alignment. I think this is a game that'll come down to the fourth quarter.
Emory, this matchup to me is really interesting. We know that Trinidad Chambliss obviously such a threat with his legs. I think as far as Oklahoma's concerned, we know that the Sooners have an absolutely fearsome pass rush. But for me, I think a pass rush plan may be to just hem Trinidad Chambliss in, keep him inside, and don't actually come after him, right? Make him be a pocket passer, in my opinion. And my question to you, Emory, is do you think Trinidad Chambliss can beat Oklahoma like that?
I don't think so, and I think that's what you expect. Ole Miss team expects you to do, right? They want you to kind of fly up the field. Their quarterback breaks camp, creates second chance opportunities, keeps his eyes downfield, and that's where those chunk plays happen. But when you have that type of offensive philosophy going up against one of the more disciplined defenses in the country, that's a great open field tackling team. Brent Venables understands, and his team understands, like at some point you got to go forward. So when you snap the football, there's only so many things you can do. There's only so many ways you can run mesh, so many different things you can do offensively. We just got to make sure we rally up, make the tackle, and get off the field. And there's no surprise that they've done a lot of that all season long. So that's why Lane Kiffin is kind of shaking in his boots in his to use that term, because he's afraid of this team is disciplined enough to where they're not going to be fooled by the eye candy. They're not going to get out of position. They're not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to play big boy football. We haven't seen Ole Miss do that as of yet on offense. And to your point, that's where push versus pressure come into play. And they'll put a lot of strain on Ole Miss to be consistently comfortable with these 3 or 4 yard gains as opposed to going big game hunting.
Brad, John Mateer's hand injury certainly probably still lingering, obviously getting better by the week. He's going to have to tote the rock, I think, in this game a little bit. And I think it works because I don't think Ole Miss's defense, obviously from a pass rush situation, is not what it was last year at all. But I think Ole Miss's defense overall may struggle to contain this Oklahoma offense. But OU needs to prove that it can put up big offensive numbers against the class of the SEC. It's something that we haven't seen over the last couple of years from OU, Brad.
If I'm not mistaken, it sounds like you and Emory are both calling Ole Miss soft heading into this game. I think this is some bulletin board material for the Rebels. Look, we saw a couple weeks ago Ole Miss beat LSU 24-19, and they did it at the line of scrimmage between the tackles. So I think Ole Miss and Lacey, the run game there, they can try to get going against OU. I know it last week against South Carolina, OU was just monstrous in the red zone. They squashed South Carolina several times at the line of scrimmage. That's the game plan going in. But getting to your question about John Mateer, I think he's okay as a passer. But like you said, there's going to be 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 plays where we know where Ole Miss is going in that direction. But can John Mateer get outside and make guys miss like Perkins and some of them other Ole Miss guys at linebacker?
All right, fellas, let's pick it. We'll go around the horn. I'm taking Oklahoma -5.5. I love the Sooners in this spot. I just think on defense, they're going to have too much for Trinidad Chambliss on the back end. Like I said, I think they make Trinidad Chambliss a pocket passer as much as you can. With a player like that, you force Ole Miss to execute their way down the field. None of this big play stuff. Keep it all in front of you. Get the game into the red zone, then condense the space and turn some 7s into 3s and try to outscore Ole Miss by the end that way. Brad, how do you see this game going?
Yeah, I like Ole Miss +5.5. I hope it gets to 6, 6.5. I'll keep pounding the Rebels. I like Ole Miss to win this game outright, too. This is a game that if the Rebels do go to Norman and win, you can go ahead and Sharpie in Ole Miss as a playoff lock, at worst, 10-2 finish. But if they lose this game, then they've got to win the last 4 games to make the playoff, because 9-3 with Ole Miss's schedule and their wins right now ain't going to cut it.
Emory, how you seeing this one?
Wasn't the Ole Miss LSU game the first time we learned about Whit Weeks and his new bow out there on the other side? Of course, that defense got beat up in the trenches. So I will take the under here in this ball game. So I would look at this and say Ole Miss and Oklahoma will play a physical game. They'll try to match their physicality. The defense is so tough to score touchdowns against that we can get under this 54.5 number. I think that's the play. That's the best play, in my opinion, for this ball game.
All right, when we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to hit you with the Blitz. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. All right, fellas, let's hit him with the Blitz. I'm actually going to start us off with a Friday night tilt. Fellas, I don't know if you know about this, but Sacramento State's school president went on the television and started talking all that mess about Montana, called them the pandas, said all this type of stuff about them. And I'll tell you this, Montana head coach Bobby Hauck ain't gonna like that one bit. Montana minus 8.5, where you can get them. Run, don't walk. I'd take it 10, I'd take it 14. I know the Grizzlies, not the Pandas, the Grizzlies are gonna make this one hurt.
I hear you there, man. My first pick of week 9 is Missouri plus 2.5 at Vanderbilt. When Vanderbilt beat LSU last week, that was the first time in 177 games that the Commodores were a betting favorite against a ranked opponent. And now it happens back-to-back weeks, which is absolutely wild this season in Nashville. I took Clark Lee's team to beat LSU. I am not tailing the Doors this week. I think Missouri gets it done. And Ahmad Hardy, after back-to-back games under 100 yards, he eclipsed that Saturday afternoon, and Missouri stays in the playoff hunt.
I think Vandy stays in the playoff hunt. I'm going to go on the other side, Brad. I'm going to take them minus 2.5. I watched Missouri's offense try to get the game away to Auburn last weekend. I can't take Bo Prabula over America's quarterback in Diego Pavia. I agree with you about Hardy. He's going to have some success, but overall it'll come down to which quarterback can you trust to make a play, and I got to go with Pavia in this one.
Emory, you're not the only person that can give out FCS picks on this show. I had to hit him with some FCS on the show this week. My second Blitz pick, we're going to go to the big one in the American. USF minus 5.5 against Memphis. Love the Bulls in this spot. Memphis quarterback Brendan Lewis, a little bit banged up, was knocked out of the game last week against UAB, where Memphis was stunned by the Blazers in that game with interim coach Alex Mortensen. Because of that, and because of the fact that I think USF's just pretty solid, Byron Brown is a great quarterback at that level, dual threat. A lot of that offense runs through him, and Alex Golesh is building quite the program in Tampa. I love USF in this spot to continue their march to be the Group of 5 entrant in the college football playoff when all is said and done.
I'm going to the Big Ten next. Purdue plus 1.5 against Rutgers. Purdue's lost 13 straight conference games. The last win coming, I think it was against Indiana back in 2023. That streak will come to an end Saturday. The Scarlet Knights are winless in conference play, and they're bad enough defensively for this to be the spot to pick the Boilermakers. You don't get many chances in 2025, fellas, to take Purdue to win a game outright. I like Purdue plus 1.5 and on the money line to get its first Big Ten win in 2 years.
I'm going to go to the All-Coast Conference where, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Bill Belichick is coaching in North Carolina, and it's been an absolute train wreck. You know, it has been a great find in the All-Coast Conference. Virginia, ladies 10.5 points with the Cavaliers. They've been outstanding on offense. Tony Elliott has these guys balling on both sides of the ball, and they'll put probably the final death nail in this Bill Belichick North Carolina story by blowing them out in Chapel Hill.
Arkansas minus 2.5 against Auburn. Look, we talked about it earlier in the show. Center Connor Lew is out for Auburn. You've got Hugh Freeze, all kinds of distracted, talking about where's my vote of confidence from his athletic director. A backs against the wall Auburn team I do not think rises to the occasion against an Arkansas team that at least their head coach Bobby Petrino needs something of a signature win to try to cement his permanent case as head coach again of the Arkansas Razorbacks. Because of that, I think Arkansas comes out motivated, great game plan. They played well the last couple weeks and come up just short. Hogs win this game and cover -2.5 against the Tigers.
We talked about my next game in the open, Houston at Arizona State. I like the Cougars and Willie Fritz +7.5 in that Big 12 game. Houston quarterback Connor Weigman clean this season. He's been kept clean. Only a couple sacks allowed the last couple weeks in Big 12 play. Dean Connors in the backfield. He's given him plenty of help on the ground. This is a very well coached team. 6 wins already, bowl eligible at Houston. Didn't expect to say that here at midseason point. I fully expect a 4-quarter battle, but give me the points and the Cougars +7.5. Maybe sprinkle some money on the money line as well.
I look at this Indiana UCLA game as a situation where the sports books probably are basing this game off of September UCLA. This is a completely different team right now, and I think this is a good enough offense and a competitive defense to where they can keep this point spread of Indiana of 25.5 under that number. Maybe a backdoor cover, but we'll see this team compete for 4 quarters. So I will take UCLA +25.5 versus Indiana.
Missouri -2.5 against Vanderbilt. Fellas, I am a lot of different ways about this pick, to be honest with you. I think this game could swing either way on this one. Vanderbilt's been great this season. I know that's going to be an absolutely raucous atmosphere in Nashville this weekend, especially off the back of what Vanderbilt was able to do against LSU. I like this Missouri team, though. I like what they've got going. I know that they have struggled over the last couple weeks relative to the beginning of their season, but I think Ahmad Hardy gets going in this game, and I think Missouri, who's really good up front, figures out a way to get it done in this spot.
Now, here's a pick that nobody else is going to give you on the internet this week. It's Wisconsin over 6.5 points at Oregon. It can't get any worse for Luke Fickell right now. Back-to-back shutouts for the Wisconsin offense. And they haven't scored more than a touchdown in a game since week 3, I think it was, in a blowout loss. So Oregon wins this game. It's going to be lopsided. But give me Wisconsin scoring a touchdown in the 4th quarter against the Ducks twos to cover this spread. I like Wisconsin over 6.5 points. All you need is a touchdown and a PAT.
Again, I feel like the odds makers are judging this game wrongly. Minnesota versus Iowa, as if Minnesota beat Nebraska Kearney, last week, as opposed to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Shout out to the Lopers, by the way, to play good Division II football. But when you look at this game, Minnesota has better quarterback play, more consistent quarterback play, and I like how they are able to create explosives in the passing game and also in the run game. We saw that last week versus Nebraska. I like them +8.5 against Iowa in this rivalry game.
Speaking of 8.5s, I'll give you Tennessee -8.5 against Kentucky. Look, I'm all over favorites this week. I don't know if that's something I should be worried about, but that's where I'm at this week. At the end of the day, I think if Tennessee can get their nose out in front here, there is just absolutely no chance Kentucky is able to match them. Kentucky is one of the worst deep passing teams that you will ever see at this level of college football. It's just not good enough for the Wildcats. I know that they were able to make it a sloppy rock fight game against Texas last week, but against Georgia a few weeks ago, they weren't able to bring that game into the muck. I think Tennessee gets a nose out in front, and they're able to run against a Kentucky team that it will just not be at the races.
Alabama at South Carolina is one of the most bet games in week 9. I think I read 94% of the money right now is on Alabama to cash -11.5. I'm staying away from the point spread, and I'm going Alabama team total over 29.5. I've given out 2 Crimson Tide over bets on this show this season, 2-0 there. And I like this game to be competitive. The Gamecocks have not shown any sort of heartbeat this season offensively. This is the week. It has to happen at some point, right? That Lenoris Sellers makes guys miss, has maybe a 250-yard total offense game. And it's a game that might be competitive as we approach the final quarter. So I like Alabama to win in a shootout of sorts against the Gamecocks. Take the Crimson Tide over 29.5 total points.
We had a situation last week where the wrong team I felt was underdogs and not favored. That's Georgia Tech and Duke. In this game, we got BYU is coming in as an underdog in this matchup. And we watched BYU do a great job, at the point of attack, in the trenches, playing situational football great. They've been consistently good all season long, and we've seen Iowa State kind of falter all throughout the season after they got on after the first loss. They kind of fell by the wayside each and every week. And so I don't understand why they are favored in this game against BYU, but I will take the Cougars plus 2.5.
How about Northwestern plus 7.5 against Nebraska? Was not impressed at all with Nebraska last week against Minnesota. You had Dylan Raiola on the ground far too often. That tackle combination that Nebraska has is just not good enough to keep Raiola upright. I think going up against a good edge tandem with Northwestern is not a recipe for success. Credit to David Braun for being able to get this team to play, frankly, like some of the best teams in the Pat Fitzgerald era played. Look, they're going to run the ball, they're going to control the clock, they're going to play good defense, and they're going to be physical. You've got Northwestern as a team that is chasing bowl eligibility plus. To be honest with you right now, at 4-2, I like these Wildcats, and I like them to cover the spread in this game.
My guy Emory has already talked about Taylor Green ad nauseum this season, and it's hard to argue why. I mean, he's a talented player, Arkansas starting quarterback, and he's going to have a 4-touchdown game this weekend against Auburn. Hugh Freeze is going to lose for the 5th time in 5 games against SEC play. And I'm going to tell Richard on this one. I like Arkansas -2. Maybe the Hogs win by double digits against a Tigers team that is fading here at midseason.
Man, the Aztecs of San Diego State are sitting there playing great ball on the West Coast and no one's talking about it. And they come into this ball game only 2.5-point favorites against Fresno State. Fun fact about E.J. Warner, every team he's quarterbacked, he's led the conference in interceptions. So that's Temple, that's Rice, and he's well on his way to do that at Fresno State. This defense is quietly top 5 in the country. Give me San Diego State -2.5 against Fresno.
When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to give you some underdog picks to get you into the weekend. All right. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. America loves an underdog, and we love an underdog here on the show. Let's give you some underdog plays to get you into Week 9. I will start us off. Houston over Arizona State. Give it to me outright, plus 228. We talked about in the beginning of the show the fact that Arizona State doesn't have Jordyn Tyson. They are just a significantly different team without Tyson because of how much gravity he has in the Arizona State passing game and for the Arizona State offense. I think at the end of the day, this Arizona State offense will just not be able to compete in this game because they're not going to have as much explosive threat in the passing game without Tyson, who is just a dependable, reliable force for them. He scored in 7 games that they played, that he's played, I should say, so far this season. Because of that, give me the Cougars resurgent under Willie Fritz. Love them in this spot.
We've talked about the unpredictability inside the Big 12 this season. I'm going to stay there with this Week 9 upset of the week. I'm going Baylor over Cincinnati. I know it's a small road upset, but I do like Sawyer Robertson. Right now, leads college football with 2,376 yards passing, 21 touchdowns. Baylor's tied 8th in the Big 12, but it's because of all these high-scoring games they've played. Last week against TCU, lost 42-36, but the Bears had a ton of explosives. If they have that many on the road against Cincinnati, I do think it'll be enough to beat the Bearcats outright. Give me Baylor on the money line to further muddy up the Big 12 title picture.
Give me Minnesota over Iowa. I like the fact that Minnesota just plays a great brand of football. Big fan of PJ Fleck. I think he's the best dressed coach on the sideline. I don't care if he looks like he works for Smart Tech, but he does it the right way. Like, he's building right in the trenches, and they have explosiveness in the backfield. They have a quarterback that you could trust. And Iowa on the other side has been playing a little bit banged up at QB, which has limited their offense. I know we've heard that before, but at the end of the day, this offense and defense of Minnesota are playing good at the right time, and I think they are catching Iowa at the worst time, so I will take them to win outright against the Hawkeyes.
Emory's giving you Smart Tech on the show. He's giving us Radio Shack during the break. The guy is a 5-tool hitter, a 5-tool player. Brad, let's go inside these picks a little bit here. As far as Minnesota against Iowa, what do you think Iowa is getting from Mark Gronowski, and what aren't they getting? He's tied for quarterback rushing touchdowns so far this season with 10, so he's giving you that dual threat aspect. But the other side of the dual threat aspect, the passing aspect, it's not really what you want, even though they've gotten Reese Vanderzee back for that Iowa passing game.
was going to say, let's go with a Circuit City reference now since we're going old school electronics here. Plug it in offensively for Gronowski and start throwing the ball downfield, man. I was not hitting balls at the second level. We talked about how well Mark's doing on the ground with so many touchdowns and really being physical at the line of scrimmage, but they've got to make big plays in the passing game, especially if they want to win this home game against Minnesota. I like Emory's pick there, though. Minnesota, like he said, they are fundamentally sound. We already saw them beat Nebraska last week in a really good win there on a Friday night. Now they're going to go into a tough environment at Iowa, but I do see Minnesota also at least covering in this game, maybe not winning outright.
Emory, what's up with your boy Coy Parrish from Minnesota, man? Came in this season, we thought he was going to get the Travis Hunter treatment, and they started in the beginning of the season giving him some snaps on offense, but now he's a defensive specialist, tremendous safety for Minnesota.
Yeah, he realized quickly, like, hold on, I can play both sides of the ball. Came into the season like, hold on, offense got hands. Let me stick on the defensive side and hang out on that side. Like, it's just too much work for the body. But I love that he's thriving in that role because, again, when you have a guy that could take the ball away and puts a lot of strain on the opposing offense to be precise with their routes, precise with the passes, and when you're throwing an errant ball or you're not running a crisp route, he's right there to take full advantage, which helps this defense get going. And on offense, we've seen him just take full advantage of the opportunities they've gotten from the defensive side, giving them the ball back.
Brad's upset pick was Baylor over Cincinnati, plus 142 there. Brad, what do you make of Brandon Sorsby, who's been tremendous, I thought, so far this season, after kind of having a clunker against Nebraska to start the year?
He's been a great quarterback, and he looks like a legitimate early, maybe a late day one guy in a future NFL draft if this keeps going. He's been able to limit mistakes. That's always a key in a Cincinnati offense that has some balance, but on third down, they're looking to really move downfield. This is a spot Saturday, though, against Baylor where I think you're going to see mano a mano, two really good quarterbacks in the Big 12, two guys that really we aren't talking about enough. Josh Hoover at TCU gets a ton of the love, Baron Morton at Texas Tech, Sam Levitt at Arizona State. But these two guys are also first-team Big 12 capable. And over the final 6 weeks of the regular season, I think we're going to see both, great performances out of Robertson and Sorsby.
Emory, this Baylor team, a lot of fun, not a lot of defense, but a lot of fun. What have you enjoyed from this Baylor team so far this season?
The offense, because defense, like you said, has been terrible, and which is crazy because Dave Aranda is such a defensive guy. To watch his defense go from great to awful has been fascinating, to say the least.
When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, not only do we have the model play of the day, we've got a parlay that's so big it can't fit on the bottom of your screen. Join us next on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. All right, we're going to get you into your weekend with a model play. Don't trust us, trust the computers more than anything. And the computers say this week, Miami of Ohio moneyline minus 125 is a good value play. DeQuan Finn, Miami's quarterback, has been a bucket this year as a dual threat player. He's Miami's leading rusher so far this season, and the model expects him to power Miami to the victory in that game, minus 125 for the money line. All right, fellas, let's talk about our parlays for the Friday. I will start us off with a three-legger. Look at Ole Miss team total under 23.5 against Oklahoma for the first leg. Again, as we've said earlier in the show, I just don't think Trinidad Chambliss is going to be able to score a ton against an Oklahoma defense that is going to pen him in. It's going to force him to be a pocket passer, force him to execute, and limit the big play. Because of that, I like that team total to go under for Ole Miss, and I like Oklahoma to try to control this game in a game that I also think Oklahoma will win. Washington State money line minus 105 against Toledo. Washington State has been very close in the last couple weeks. Last two losses against Ole Miss and Virginia by a combined 5 points. It put a scare into both of those teams. And if it wasn't for a safety last week, maybe that game goes into overtime against the Cavs. I love what Washington State is doing. They've been so close. I know Toledo's dangerous, but I'll take Washington State to win this game outright. And then Michigan minus 14.5 against Michigan State. Sharon Moore came out in the work shirts and it's working because Michigan has gotten off the schneid and has been able to play dependable, physical, good football last week. Because of that, I take them in this rivalry effort. I know it's a nasty, mucky game whenever these two in-state rivals get it on, but I just think Michigan State, bad vibes coming from them. And the Aiden Childs experiment not really working for Spartans at quarterback. All right, Brad, your parlay.
Yeah, I'm going to go three-teamer as well, trying to hit a fifth parlay this season. We've come up empty the last couple of weeks because of one game, so I'm hoping this three-teamer hits. I like Ole Miss plus 5.5 against Oklahoma. This has been well documented on today's show. I'm the only guy right now that's tailing the Rebels. I think Ole Miss scores enough points potentially to win this game, but definitely to cover. Give me the first leg there. Missouri plus 2.5 at Vanderbilt. You can also add Missouri money line if you like to spice this up a little bit. I do like Missouri to win on the road in Nashville. And then another 3:30 game, Iowa State over unbeaten BYU. Iowa State on the money line. That would be plus 539, excuse me, if that cashes. And the good news here, one of those games is at noon, the other two at 3:30. So if you lose your parlay cash, go put it all in a night game of your choice.
Or if you win, you're going to be done by dinner time. Signed, sealed, and delivered. All right, let's clear the decks. Let's get out of the man's way because Emory Hunt is carrying the ball here with a parlay of epic proportions. Mr. Hunt, my friend, the floor is yours.
It's a 10-leg FCS only parlay. Who's giving you FCS picks? Delaware State taking on North Carolina Central. If Delaware State wins this game, they're going to win the MEAC. Deshaun Jackson's done a fantastic job. Number one rushing team in the FCS. I'm taking them plus the points. Monmouth quarterback Derek Robinson, who I've been championing all season long, got hurt in the game last week that I was calling. Hurt his arm. He's not going to play. So I will take them to go under 70.5 total points. Frankie Weaver's a fantastic quarterback. We have to wait and see first. So the under there is the play. Magic City Classic. I know I've seen Richard and Brad there before. So you laid the 10.5 points with Alabama State over Alabama A&M. And here's the money line section. North Dakota State beat South Dakota State. You have Montana knocking out Sacramento State. We talked about that earlier. Alcorn State knocking out Mississippi Valley. Dartmouth taking care of Columbia. South Carolina State knocking out their opponent as well. Campbell beating North Carolina A&T. South Carolina State, by the way, is beating Norfolk State with Michael Vick. Morehead State in the new Phil Simms Stadium is knocking out Valparaiso. So that money line, when I win this money line in this parlay plus 52.75, guys, I'm gonna be the most obnoxious person. I'm walking around everywhere talking on speakerphone and FaceTime with a big plate of chitlin nachos. They gonna get tired of me.
Let me tell you something. Dinner is on Emory Hunt for the rest of the season if he gets this one done. Incredible parlay. Tell me a little something about the fighting Deshaun Jackson's at Delaware State, who you say will cover 15.5 in that game. It's a big one next week against Norfolk State, Michael Vick versus Deshaun Jackson. But tell me about how the Hornets are getting it done this year.
Marquise Gillis is the NFL tailback prospect that you want to keep an eye on, but the backup may be better than him. That's James Jones Jr., who's super explosive, and they're being coached by Clinton Portis, who's the running backs coach over there. So this team averages 283 yards rushing a game. They should be 6-1 going into this matchup. Fluky loss, but this team, I've been super impressed with how he has coached his football team collectively. This is a very good Delaware State team. To me, they are going to win the MEAC.
Gainesville, Florida's own Clinton Portis, just so we're clear. I also liked your pick, North Dakota State money line in the Dakota Marker game against South Dakota State. North Dakota State, we know what they bring. Trey Lance's brother, Bryce Lance, at receiver for the Bison. He's been a great player, absolutely smooth athlete. Look for him to grace your screens on NFL Sunday coming up soon. But it's an epic 10-leg parlay from Emory. Brad, I don't know what we're going to say if Emory's able to hit that one. I don't even know if he can be on the show. He's won the show if he hits that parlay.
Y'all won't see me like y'all don't see Circuit City no more.
Thanks for joining us on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. I'm your host, Richard Johnson, for Brad Crawford and Emory Hunt. We'll see you next week.